is Jeroen Breuer. I work for DigiBiz in Den Bosch. And today I'm going to talk about uEasy. uEasy is a commercial package for Umbraco 5. And it's going to add some new features to the back office. And hopefully these features can make it easier for developers and for content editors. And I'm just going to discuss a couple of features now. And the code that I currently have is just a proof of concept that these things are possible in Umbraco 5. And I'm just going to show a feature, and then I'm going to show some code how this feature will be possible in Umbraco 5. The first feature that I'm working on is dual edit. It will be possible to edit two nodes at the same time. For instance, this can be two content nodes, but it will also be possible to edit one content node and one document type at the same time. For instance, because the two nodes are together in one screen, you can also relate them and copy properties from one node to another, or even translate them. I'm going to show a little demo and code for that now. The code is a little too unstable yet, so we just made a simple movie for it. So as you can see, because you have to select two nodes, there are just two content trees for now. You just select your content node, your template node, you click dual edit, and you get one big model which fills the entire screen. And practically you can now edit two nodes at the same time. You can edit the first node, just save and publish it. You can edit the second node, do the same stuff with it. And so you can just work on two nodes at the same time. You can just have a preview, everything just works. For example, what you can also do is just, of course, now it's easier to copy content from one node to another. This can be easy with our multi-language website. Here you can see the copy button. For example, if you press the copy button, you get another model, and in there it will check the left node and the right node, which properties will have the same alias, and you can say, okay, I want to copy the properties from the one node to the other node. The same thing with translate, which can be easy if you're having a multi-language website. It's the same thing, but then you select the properties on the left side, you click translate, and those properties get translated to the second node. Of course, Umbraco has, you can already copy a node, but then it already then it doesn't exist. In this case, both nodes already exist, and instead of copying a node, I just want to copy some properties or translate them, and that's what dual edit can do for you. Now, what's also possible is that I have a content tree and a document type tree. I just click on the content node, the document type node, and now I can actually edit my node and my document type at the same time. For example, I can add something extra. And even though I already added an extra property, I can just edit the node, save it, and the moment that it's saved, the other one which I just added just appears. So in this case, usually I first create my document type and then my node, but now it's also possible to do that at the same time, or if you're extending an existing document type, it's easy that you can have your node next to it and actually have kind of a preview of the document type that you're creating. Okay, so that was actually the movie. I'm also going to show a part of the code, how I created this. First, there's my web.config file. This web.config file is just a config file which is in my package folder, and here I can just add extra things for Umbraco. Here I have my zoom in. So here I say, okay, for my media section, I want to add an extra dashboard. In this case, I just want it to be a view. It's also possible to say that you first return a controller, and then you can do some business logic in your controller, and then you can say, okay, I want to return a view. But in this case, just having a view was good enough. I didn't need an extra controller for this. So I add a part to my media section, and I add a dashboard to my settings section. This is the view which you just saw, the two trees. The code from the tree is just something which I copied from the Umbraco 5 concept project. So if you want to know how that works, you can have a look there. One interesting thing is that if I create a new node, that I can determine my on node click. In this case, I can define a JavaScript method here. I'm going to demo that now. So if I now click on my node, it just simply shows a pop-up, but in there I already have my Hive ID. So because I have my Hive ID, I can later use that to fill in the iframes which I'll be using in Dual Edit. And actually this is the piece of JavaScript which I just used. So when I create my tree, I can give a node click. And this is the JavaScript which I can execute where I can get my Hive ID, and in this case just give a simple alert. This is the part where the two trees are rendered next to each other. Nothing special here. I also want to show you how the model works here. If I click on Dual Edit, because the code wasn't stable enough, I disabled it for now, but I do want to show you how you can create this full screen model. So this is the link I just clicked. It has a simple ID, and then I go to my jQuery. I create a click event for that ID, and here I say, okay, I want to show a model. I give it an ID, a title. Is global is true, which means that I can maximize the model, and I can also drag it over the tree by default. If you have a model, you can only drag it inside the right iframe, and now you can use it over your entire screen. In this case, I don't want to use an iframe. If you have a model in V4, I believe you always you just point to a location, so it's always an iframe. In this case, it doesn't have to be an iframe, because here I can just say, okay, this is the ID that I want to show in my model. And that's actually just this piece of code. So if I want to use a model now in V5, I can just add a div on the current page, and I don't need to use an iframe anymore to do this. Now we also have the close button here, which is just this piece of code again, and I just get that click event, and here I just say hide the model again. I pass in the ID. This global is true, and then the model gets hidden again. So these are some features which I am going to use when I'm going to create my Dual Edit feature for Umbraco. The next thing that I want to add in uEasy as a feature is a content reminder or advanced publishing. For example, you can get a reminder email if you have a news section which hasn't posted any news for example 2 weeks. You can get an email like, hey, you haven't updated your news section or your homepage for a while, maybe you should do that again. You can also have recurrent publishing, so you can just say, okay, I want this node to be published every Sunday, and also all of its child nodes, so you can already set a couple of things which you don't want to have published yet until a certain date. Of course, you can just choose when you want to have your reminder or when you want to publish your content. I'm going to show a little demo code for that now. we're just going to go to my content tree, to my home node, and as you can see, these are the 3 default buttons which are normally there, but there's also a 4th button, which is currently just named model, and which will just open an extra model. When you want to have a reminder, or when you want to do advanced publishing, you're going to be able to do it in this model. I haven't done anything of that yet, but I want to show now is how I can actually add this this extra button to my content editor part. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually using a class for this, and I'm using the model present to view class. Umbraco does add a lot of logic to its model, of course, then it sends it to the view, but before it's done, I can use this task, which are events in V4, and I can add more data to the view before it's sent to the back office. So in this case, I'm getting my model, I check if it's a content editor model, and then I cast it. And here I'm saying, okay, I want to add the extra separator, which you're seeing here. And then I want to add an extra button with an alias and a title. In this case, because the CSS class is preview button, you just get a preview icon. And in the additional data, I add an ID with submit model. Now this will only add the button to the back office, but of course I don't need the button, I also need to be able that it can show a model. And I believe it's already a feature in 5.0.1. There it's possible to add your own JavaScript and style sheets to the client dependency which Umbraco 5 is using. So I'm just getting the dependency renderer here. And here I just say, okay, if on the content editor page I want to add this extra piece of JavaScript, which is actually simply this piece of code. It's the same thing which we just saw for a model. The difference is, in this case, I say that I want to have an iframe and I want to have a URL. And that's actually the controller that you're seeing here. The Umbraco part is the default URL rewriting. The uEasy part is actually the name of my package. If I go to my Umbraco site, app plugins, packages, this is the name that's actually used also when you're creating URLs. The test editor is the name of my controller, and the overview is the action result which I'm returning. And this is the controller. It's named test editor controller, and you have to make sure that it ends with editor controller, because otherwise it will partially work, but then it will not look for your views inside your package folder. And in Umbraco 5, what I'm really trying to do is, or which Umbraco 5 wants me to do, is that I want to have all my things, my DLL files, my JavaScript files, my views, all have to be in one folder, in the app plugins packages folder. And because I inherit from a test editor controller, that's possible. So here I'm just returning a view named overview, which is this one. It's a simple form. It posts back to the controller I just had. And then in this action result again, I return some simple content. So with this, it's possible to add an extra button and a model, and I'm going to use these features of P5 to create my content reminder advanced publishing feature. The next feature is favorite notes. You can have favorite content and you can have favorite media. It's basically the same thing which Matt created for P4, But I asked him, can I port it to V5 and make it a part of uEasy, and he agreed with that. Maybe it will also be part of other sections, but with favorite nodes, if you have a node which you use a lot, you can actually now find it in a different part of the tree where it's easier to use. Also got a little demo in code for that. By default, the content tree of course only shows the content, but in this case there are two trees here, the content and the fab. And actually this is just a node which I added here. And if I go to my node here, I have to go all the way to homepage, books, Umbraco user guide. And I can add it here. But now it's also available here, so it's easier to find. And it works the exact same way, so the nodes which you use the most can just be in a different part of your content tree, and it still works the exact same way. Now the code that I'm using here for is actually, first I'm going to my web.com config. So this is where the part where I added my dashboards, and here I can simply also add my tree. I say that it needs to be part of the content section. This is the controller that I want to use, and this is the assembly which is in. And this is the controller which is used to render the extra favorite content tree. It has to end with tree controller, otherwise Umbraco won't recognize it. These are just some default methods actually. I want to show this method to get tree data. Here I'm just saying I want to add the extra node, the name, in this case it's just a hard-coded URL, and I can also determine the icon here. And so I just create a tree node, I add it to my node collection, and then I say return the Umbraco tree, which will actually return the node collection for you again. And basically I just create a new node, and here it is. That's all you really need to do for it. So it's very easy to create your own trees and add them to the Umbraco 5 backoffice, which is a feature that I'm using for this. Next feature which I'm trying to add, haven't actually done anything for this yet, but the idea is that if you're on a content page and you navigate away from it, but you haven't pressed the save button yet, that you just get a simple message or something. Or perhaps I'm trying to do temp saving, that if your browser crashes, that if you reopen the page, that your content is still there, even if you didn't save it yet. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do this, but at least I want to show you that it's a feature that I'm adding to uEasy. Now, besides uEasy has some bigger features like the dual edit and the favorite content, but there are also some smaller features like show aliases. It's a simple thing. Now you have a property, you have your name, you have your description, but as a developer when I'm working, sometimes I also want to see the alias. Now in this case I usually open my document type to see the alias if it's correct, or perhaps it might be different than the name. And now I just want to add it to the node. And for example, only admins that are logged in can see it, and they can just see the alias underneath the description on the node. Next thing is required label. Actually, currently, if you will only see if a property is mandatory if you press the save button, and here I'm actually trying to show you beforehand. I got a little demo in code for that. If I now go, all my nodes, everything here is black. And if I go to my contact node, you can see that it's red. There are many different ways to show it, but I just want to show here one of the possibilities. So I can make this red. I'm going to show you now how that is done. It's the model present to view task again. In here I have my model, and like I just said, you can add JavaScript, but in this case I just say, okay, I want to add an extra style sheet to the back office. And this is a very simple style sheet which just says make everything red, but so it's actually very easy to just add your own style sheets to the back office this way. Now, as you can see, there are quite a lot of features, but this one is page notifications. Umbraco has a notification system already built in, and I just want to add some more notifications to it. For example, if I now go to my no template content, you can get a message like, hey, this node has no template, in case someone forgot it. And this one, for example, can have another notification. This page will be published every Sunday, which is something which I could have done with my advanced publishing. The code for this is actually the same file again. In this case, I just have some hard-coded IDs, like, okay, if it's the content node or the no template node, then I just want to add this message. And like I said, Umbraco already has this built in, so if I have my model, I can just go to notice board, add. I can add a new notification message, and in this case, this node has no template, or this page will be published. So this notification is also really easy to add. One of the final features is like a big help description. Currently, you can have a little description underneath a property, but this can just give you some extra information for a node you're working on. Yeah, I said demo and code, but basically it will be the same as the advanced publishing. Here will be an extra button, you click on it, and you can get a description for this. You can do it for a specific document type or a specific node, like just a description what you have to do on this node, which makes it easier for content editors to understand why you need this node. That was actually the part about uEasy for Umbraco 5, but I still got some time left, and since everyone is already here, I thought it might be a good idea to show some Razor stuff about Umbraco 4. So I'm going to give a little demo and code about that now. It's completely unrelated to uEasy anymore, just want to... there are some hidden gems, and I hope someone can still learn from them. Yes?
Question about the previous?
Yeah,
the last one, the help description. Do you show that one else on the screen? You type something in there, and does it practically come up when you choose a content of that document type that has help? You show it somewhere, or just?
Yeah, well, there will probably be a different content section where you can go, where you can just pick a document type, or you can pick a node. You can edit your info there, and then it will be stored somewhere. So if you go to the node where you want to have a help description from, it will fetch it from somewhere else. You can edit it at a different place, and there you can just show the info.
Okay, currently it's not implemented, but
no. This, like I said, this is just a proof of concept.
Yeah, okay.
How things will eventually work.
It would be nice if it would pop up on screen when you go on the notes and see just the help description next to it. That's what I'm mentioning.
Okay, yeah, something like that might also be possible.
Okay.
So that was actually the presentation. And now I'm going to show you something for Razor stuff. A question I see a lot on Twitter is how can I do Razor stuff inside the user control? And this is actually very easy. Here I got here you've got an example. If I view the source, you can see that it's exactly the same thing. I've got a title, some text, and a link. Here I've got the same thing. This is actually my user control. Just some literals and a hyperlink. If I go to the back, this is how people usually do it. They do node.getCurrent, and then they do getProperty and a library nice URL. That's how most people do it. Razor actually uses a dynamic node. So if you use your model inside Razor, that is a dynamic node. And inside a user control, you can actually also fetch this dynamic node. So in this case, I do dynamic model is new dynamic node, which has a lot of overloads, and one of the overloads is that I can pass in node.getCurrent. So, and this model is the exact same model that you're using in Razor, but now you have it available inside the user control. So you can just say model.title, model.text, and library nicereal model.page, and as you can see, the dynamic code is much clearer than the node factory code. I don't even need to convert my page to an integer anymore like you need to do here. But this is 4.7.1.1, where if you go to the Umbraco settings, you need to map that. So this model.page is a content picker. I go to my Umbraco settings. This is the width of the content picker. And here I say, okay, I want this to be an integer when I'm using it on my dynamic node. So that's why this works, and as you can see, the dynamic code is much clearer, and it works the same way. But you can also do model.children, model.children.where, all the things that you do in Razor can also be done inside a user control. That was the first part which I wanted to show. The second part is actually a piece of Razor code. I'm going to show it first. I've got my node demo here, which I'm displaying here, but I'm also displaying a distance which is 1000. This actually is a property which I'm displaying, but this property doesn't exist on my node. I actually added this property later on. How can I do this? In Umbraco, everything is XML. So usually you work with a node or with a dynamic node or current page in XLT, but of course you can just also work with the XML. And that's what I'm doing here. I'm getting the current node as an X element. Because it's an X element here, I can just do anything with it that I want. So here I just add another element to this X element, which is a sort of a fake property named distance. What I can do then, if I have this X element, is I can convert my XML back to a node again, and convert that back to a dynamic node. So I made some XML, I changed that, and now it's a dynamic node again. And as you can see, here I can do dynamic node.name, and here I'll zoom in a bit. Here I can do the current node.distance. So it's actually an Umbraco node again, like you always use in Razor, but it's now using a property which doesn't exist on the node itself. You've added it later on. And that's what you're seeing here. And it even works this well, that here I do the same thing 3 times. I add 3 nodes, add the fake property 3 times, convert it back to XML, but now I'm adding it to a list. And as you can see, first it's 2000, 1500, 7050, but this list is a dynamic node list, which everyone also uses in Razor. And I can just say order by distance again, so I order by this fake property. And as you can see here, it ordered by the fake property which I added. Now I want to show the first and the second thing combined. So I want to combine user control with Razor. And that's a little example here. Now I'm going to log into the backend first. As you can see, I've got a node Amsterdam, which has a location Amsterdam. I've got a location Den Bosch, which has Den Bosch. Now, if I'm going to search for Leiden, Amsterdam is the closest. So that's the node which I'll see first. And if I search for Vught, that's where I live in this new Den Bosch, then you can see that Den Bosch is the first node which is displayed. How am I doing this? I've actually got a user control here, a simple text box and a button, basic user control stuff, or web form stuff, an on-click event. I go to the on-click event of my user control. What I'm doing here is first I create a new list again for the search node. Then I'm converting the address which I just typed, for example, Leiden or Vught, to its coordinates. Here I'm actually getting the entire Umbraco XML tree. The entire Umbraco XML file I'm getting here as an X element. So I can just use link to XML on it. So in this case I just want to get all the text pages. It's still all XML. Now I want to calculate the distance between both locations, so between Amsterdam and the place I just entered, and between Den Bosch and the place I just entered. That's just, I'm getting the location, and this is a method which calculates the distance. And like I did in my previous example, I add this element again to my X element, and here I basically convert it back into search nodes. So I'm actually I'm just searching through the nodes, and the nodes which are the closest by, which will be shown first. Like I say, in a user control you can also just use order by distance. I'm saving this value inside my current.items. So now I have my dynamic node list here, and I could just use a repeater to show it on the page, but ever since we've been using Razor before, I'm like, I don't want to use repeaters and stuff like that anymore. I've got my dynamic node list and I just want to render that in Razor. So that's why I'm passing it in my current.items. I'm actually going to my Razor file, and this is all the code which I need in Razor. I fetch my collection again, check if it exists, look through them, and that's what will be shown here. So I have a user control, there I do all my logic in, and then it gets posted to a Razor file, and I can use my logic in Razor, so the Razor code stays very clean. You can do all your logic in a user control. Usually this is done in some static methods somewhere, but now it's just in the code here. There's one thing you need to remember, is that if you want to do some logic in a user control before it's sent to Razor, you need to define that in your macro, because by default the Razor code gets called during the onInit event. So the Razor is rendered before you actually get to the click event of your user control. So as you can see, if I search for Leiden now, it won't work because the Razor gets called before. It gets called first before the user control. So if I simply change it back, now it works again because the user control code gets called before the Razor code. This is a feature which I believe Garrett added in 4.7.1, so you can have a render event in your macro now. Okay, that was it actually. So talked about uEasy, some before Razor stuff, and are there any questions? Okay, that was it.